We're standing at the threshold between the old and new consciousness. Polarization is getting more intense, and along with it, the oppressiveness in what I'll call old paradigm leadership is becoming more and more visible. Whether it's in the political realm, in the corporate world, in a spiritual or religious context, you name it, it's happening in that area. I'm absolutely not saying that all leaders are abusive or bad. It's just that leadership as expressed in the old consciousness has generally been oppressive, exploitative, and self-serving. New paradigm leadership is totally different though. And even if most of us don't think of leadership as applicable to us, we're all leaders in some way or another, and how we lead matters. Today, we're discussing new paradigm leadership, what it looks like, how to embody it, the impact it has, and how it can change not only ourselves, but our families, communities, and the world. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration at the end is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing walking the talk, new paradigm leadership. So for those of you who have been watching Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, you likely know that Tia is no longer our co-host because they've just had their second baby and moved off island. We have a brand new co-host. His name is Fiona. She's been doing frequency work for quite some time and has a very high frequency resonance herself. So I'm excited to start this new chapter with her. Let's jump right in.
New paradigm leadership. What a momentous topic. Considering everything that we've just been through in the last 2 or 3 years and what's currently happening right now, new paradigm leadership, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are asking that question because I think people are seeing that the leadership that existed in the old consciousness was really centered around power and self-gain often, abuse of power, oppression, that type of thing. And people are getting really quite tired of it. You know, they're fatiguing from the sort of hypocrisy that's been happening. So people who are saying one thing and yet doing another, so they're not holding integrity. So new paradigm leadership is not just for political leaders or large corporate leaders or even small business owners. Leadership really occurs within communities, within family units, within friends. You know, there's always a person, typically, who is leading a group of people, whether that group is 2 or 10 or 50 or 1,000 or millions. There tends to be one who emerges as the leader. So what I mean by new paradigm leadership is not only about a frequency resonance in that person that is higher, it means that they also embody what I call unified integration, which is part of the 6 core essentials.
And your mastery and momentum.
And mastery and momentum, yeah.
Okay.
So unified integration is when you are embodying the frequency resonance that you wish to be, meaning that your actions and your behaviors are consistent with the frequency that you wish to be. So meaning you have an awareness of how your frequency distortions are playing out in the humanness. Meaning, are you being abusive to people without maybe even being aware of it? You know? Or are you doing that because you're in fear? Or whatever the reason is that still happening? Right? So even if you feel like you're a higher degree of resonance because you're doing a lot of frequency work, if you're behaving in a way that's a lower frequency resonance, then you're not in unified integration. So when I talk about new paradigm leadership, it's really about the embodiment of the frequency resonance that you are, which is a higher level order, which is why in the new paradigm people follow you. They're not following you because they have gain or because you promised them something or whatever it is. You see, they're following the frequency resonance that you are.
And could that also mean that as well, if for some reason I'm in a leadership position and I'm coming into a crunchy time, I'm noticing my distortions, I'm being triggered, is that also part of this new paradigm to be able to say, I can't lead right now?
Yes.
Somebody else who is in resonance, who is in balance and in coherence needs to step up, take over while I take the time now. Because that's not what's happening, is it?
Yes, exactly. So it's about to accept your humanness. Okay, that's part of the new paradigm leadership. It's not about perfection. Okay, and there's this funny idea that our leaders are so elevated that they are supposed to embody perfection in some way, and when they fall from that perfection, then we judge them as like, oh, they've fallen from grace.
How dare they?
How dare they? And then we judge them, and then we blame them, and we accuse them. It's kind of interesting what we do with leaders. Really, a new paradigm leader is aware of their humanness and what they have to work through in order to keep their resonance high and to move upwards. So as you say, it's to be like, well, right now I'm detoxing, or I'm tired, or I'm stretched too thin, or I'm fill in the blank, because we're human. And as you say, take time away and ask for collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, ask for, and it's not about in this new paradigm leadership, like you're the leader, rah, 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 rah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And you're the only one leading. It's really about how does the whole buoy upwards.
Yeah.
So different people will step in to lead in their strength.
Yeah.
They're not strong in everything. No, nobody is.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, trusting those people and to encourage them and to foster where it is that they're strong and learning from them too.
Yeah, because the new paradigm leadership, it sounds like what you're saying as well, is that if I am a new paradigm leader, I'm going to not just be leading people, I'm going to teach them how to lead.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So it comes back to that
Yes.
yogi idea that, the value of the teacher isn't by how many students he's got, it's by how many yoga teachers he creates,
Yes.
or however many masters he creates, right?
Exactly.
So the new paradigm leadership sounds like what you're saying. When we become aware and master our resonance, our frequency resonance, we can teach others just by being
Who we are.
and applying the certain essentials that we use and teaching them as well, that we can create equality.
Yes.
And therefore step down and let somebody else step up.
Yes. And it's sort of like a higher level equality, because it's almost like everyone's playing to each other's strength. Okay? So it's not like I'm the only one who's strong. It's like you're strong here. Okay, you lead here.
Yes.
Okay, I'm strong here. I'll lead here.
Yes.
I'll also learn from you as you lead in your strength.
Yes.
I may never be as good as you because you have a natural gift in whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I certainly can learn from you.
Yeah.
And we're going to be going deep on this. We're going to give a whole 3-part series on the new paradigm leadership. Because, as humans, we have a lot of distortion around low self-worth.
Yeah.
And insecurity and judgment and all these things. We're like, oh God, if they lead, it means that I'm less than.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just take them down, because they're competitive to me. Do you see what I'm saying? A new paradigm leader has enough awareness and enough confidence in who they are, the resonance that they are, and aware that they are infinite, indestructible consciousness enough to know that it's not really competitive, because we're not in scarcity, we're in abundance.
Yeah.
So there are all these different unique expressions that are different and amazing in their own ways that we can learn from, that are stronger than this. It's not really competitive. Do you see what I'm saying?
Totally.
Competition comes from when there's a scarce resource and now we're fighting over the darn thing.
Yeah, or self-worth issue.
Yeah.
I think you're better than me, so
Exactly.
now I have to either bring you down
Yeah.
or prove I'm better.
Better than.
Yeah.
Or that power is something like you have to oppress other, right, in order to have power in yourself. A new paradigm leader doesn't need to prove their power. Because if you are aware that you're infinite, indestructible consciousness, like what is there really to prove? I mean, really? You know, like, do I have to oppress you to know that? No.
Yeah,
not
because
required.
if you know that about yourself, you know that about them as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So if I'm infinite, indestructible consciousness and we're all one and we all come from the same source, then so are you.
Exactly.
All right, so let's do this together. Yeah.
Yes. So it's more inclusive. So before in the what I would call the older paradigm leadership, it was more divisive.
Yeah.
Right? It's more separate. It's like, this is my little kingdom. I gotta protect it. You stay away from my kingdom. Right? This is mine.
Mm-hmm.
But if we all, as you say, so as you said so beautifully, don't have that need to like protect a certain thing, and you realize that we are all in our own flavors, this infinite consciousness, there's nothing really to fight over, to protect, or whatever. There's only raising each other up, because in that, then we get to experience more of these different flavors, right, of these unique expressions of others. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't hold your space and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean like allow people to like walk all over you. I'm not saying that at all.
No.
But I'm saying it's a celebration of all of these different expressions of the all that is, and learning and growing from each other.
Yeah. Especially if I'm in a leadership role and I can see somebody is struggling with their crunchiness at that time, that's when you come in to support without giving up your space or surrendering your field to them. But you can say to them, okay, this is where I see your crunchiness is. Now it's your accountability and responsibility to go away and work through that.
Yeah.
And let's do this together. Yeah.
Yes. And if you're not willing to accept it, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Because, holding your space, as you know, is not just about not letting someone else into your space. It's about not pushing into someone else.
Yeah.
Right? So the new paradigm leader is willing to extend help where they feel that they can. And if it's not willingly accepted, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're not trying to like force anyone. You're like, okay, you're not ready? I'm not going to force you.
Yeah, that's something I'm still working on.
Yeah. Well, we all think we're right, obviously.
Especially in a family dynamic. Yeah, you should do it this way. No, you really should do it this way.
I know. Family is like the biggest trigger of that, I think. Or partner.
Yeah.
That's the other place that we can see that a lot.
Yeah, let's not talk that. Okay, so from a frequency resonance or new consciousness level, do you have a feeling or an idea of anything or anywhere where you see that this is potentially happening right now, or are we still waiting on this to happen?
I think it's starting to glimmer through in ways. Like I'm starting to see companies that are embodying this. It's really, they are stepping into like, okay, how do we all win? So yes, we want to sell you a good or a service.
Yeah.
But when you receive that good or service, it actually makes you stronger. And when you get stronger, it helps the community, the environment, the planet, the whatever. Do you see? So
yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a higher form of like accountability and leadership in what they're producing and what they're serving.
Yes.
How they're serving, I mean. Right? So we're seeing that. We're seeing that with, I think, new consciousness kids are starting to show that because it's interesting. They won't take any guff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't take any bullshit. They know what's true for them. They can tell when someone's in integrity and they can tell when someone's not. And they can tell when a power is being abused and when it's not. And with them, they're less willing to just be cowed by it and to be quiet about it. They're really willing to call that out and to act in a different way. So new consciousness kids, that's happening. And I think also for those of us who are doing frequency work, the way that we are, like truly, if you're embodying frequency work and embodying unified integration, you are starting to lead in different scenarios at work, within your friends, relationships, all that sort of stuff. You are leading, and the more that you hold your frequency resonance, you start to affect and have a ripple effect into other people. And it's really kind of cool to watch. And the more in integrity you are, and the more in unified integration you are, the more they want to follow. They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
How you inspire them, right? To be a better version of themselves.
So another synonym could almost be influencer.
Yes.
Right? To leadership.
Yeah.
Because I know I do anyways, I tend to think of leadership as something that is publicly seen as somebody being at the head of something.
Yeah.
Instead of, this could be a really subtle form of leadership.
Yeah.
Where you're just really influencing the space that you take up.
Yes.
And people entrain to that. And it's not really seen, that kind of leadership, but it's felt.
Yes, right? And it's very powerful. So, and as your resonance rises, the field that you are, that you just mentioned, impacts more and more and more people without you really thinking about it. It's like, I don't think that I'm necessarily going to influence my cleaner, my acupuncturist, the person I get my groceries from, my friend, you know what I mean? Like, but you are, because in your resonance, something happens in the kindness that you are, in the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the, how you hold yourself in integrity. So I think that is really important because there's so many instances now of different leaders, be they spiritual or political or corporate, who are saying that they hold a certain standard, and yet in the background there's dirty laundry.
Yeah.
And there's less and less tolerance for that because people can feel it.
Yeah.
They're like, something's not right. Whatever it is that they are doing, it feels a little dirty. It's just like, what's wrong here? And, it takes a while for some people to pick up on that because, we, like I said, we elevate our leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to, we want them to be better. You know what I mean? We want to look up to them. We want them to be this model of perfection or whatever we aspire to.
Yeah.
Right? Without seeing their humanness. And part of the new paradigm leadership is to see their humanness.
Yeah, the integrity of it.
Yeah. And it's not about being perfect.
No.
It's about having the integrity to say, like, actually, I'm not perfect. This is me and my humanness. This is what I'm working through. And I'm really candid about it.
Yeah. I made a mistake.
I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a hard one for humans, right?
Yeah, very difficult because we're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of being criticized. We don't want to seem like we failed. Some people, that's just part of their journey in terms of like arrogance and what they need to learn.
So we've talked about the new paradigm leadership and, how that looks or how we imagine it would help us as a collective and frequency resonance wise, how it would help us individually. But I'm kind of wondering now in my daily day actions when I move into a group and there's always a leader in the group, if you've work to do, community work to do, how would I recognize that I am indeed part of a group where this leadership is this new paradigm leadership? What kind of things would I look for in the leader?
Yeah. So in the new paradigm leadership, there is a shift actually from the leader being the one who's holding power that you and I have discussed, and also that they want to hold that power in the sense that the dynamic is they are better than you or more knowledgeable than you or more awake than you or more whatever than you, and to keep you in the position where you're less than them. Okay, so I've seen this actually not just in leaders, right, where they perpetuate that dynamic where they stay at the top, where they stay at the top of that power, like chain or whatever you want to call it, structure. But I've also seen it in the spiritual community with teachers or gurus or healers or whatever they are. And they want the person to always, the people who are following them, yes, they want to help them to a certain extent. But then it doesn't really go beyond that. They don't really empower them to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They want them to some degree because they are financially dependent on them or for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Okay? There are many, many reasons for that dynamic to be happening. But they want to keep the person who's following them or looking up to them or a student in that position of less than. Makes sense? Disempowerment in some way.
Yeah.
And so to watch for people who you put on a sort of a pedestal, right, as leader, notice if they need to assert that over you. It's like, I know more than you. Well, I know you felt that or had the instinct of that, but actually you're wrong. It's this. And notice how you respond to that. Because, you may have your own knowingness, but then you may give up your power to this person thinking, oh, well, they know more than me. You see? So to flip that now conversely to what is a new paradigm leader? Like you asked, right? So I gave you the negative of that. Like what's the old paradigm leadership kind of look like?
Yeah.
And that power imbalance that's been really at play for a long, long time.
Yeah.
The new paradigm leadership is just like that quote from the yogis that you mentioned, right? The sign of a
good master.
A good master is not the number of students they have, but the number of teachers they create.
That's right. Yeah.
So truly, a new paradigm leader is wanting to create other leaders.
Yeah.
It's about empowerment. Like how can you accelerate yourself so that you're not dependent on the leader, right? Because really, a true new paradigm leader knows, because of a high enough frequency resonance, that they are infinite, right? There's nothing to like hoard or hang on to from a like personal perspective. Like, why do you need to hold on to this group of people so they follow you and no one else?
Yeah.
It seems kind of silly because they're at a higher resonance where they know that they are infinite. So there's abundance. They don't need to hang on to a small group of people to manipulate them. So in that way, they are wanting everyone to return to that oneness, right? To empower people to return to that state where they are at the highest level that they can live and embody their potential as consciousness in embodiment in a way that empowers not only the people, but the ripple effect that we keep talking about into the consciousness of humanity.
Yeah. So they would promote my strengths. They would see my strengths.
Yeah.
They wouldn't highlight my weaknesses and keep perpetuating the weaknesses.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's that fine line if you come to somebody as a leader, you want to learn because you want to
Yeah.
learn new skills. But then how do you recognize, wait, now you're crossing the line. I'm no longer learning. I'm feeling diminished.
Exactly.
Ah,
So you have to be aware of that.
right.
And it's like, so, you know, as a guide, part of what, or a teacher or whatever, if somebody is struggling in their weakness, it's to point that out, but not to diminish the person when you're pointing it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, do you notice this is happening? You have a choice here. You can perpetuate that, or you can rise above it, right? And here's some tools for you, or whatever it is that the person's gift is that they help with, right? It's everyone shows up differently. But it's, as you say, if you're starting to feel diminished, then you know that person's not really acting in integrity with being a new paradigm leader. And then you have to ask yourself, if the person's doing that and you keep going back to them,
Yeah, what's my part?
what's my part in that dynamic?
Yeah.
And why do I keep creating that?
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I especially like, just want to add this, I especially like in the old paradigm leadership, there's a lot of gaslighting,
Yeah.
you know, where you say you feel a certain way and then they twist it to make it sound like, well, you've got the problem. It's not really this way, that's you that's the
It's a
problem.
Yeah.
Whereas I've noticed in the new paradigm leadership, and I hear you saying this a lot, it's, well, let me take a minute, let me go inside, let me think on this. That's interesting that you brought this up. You know, because straight away in the old paradigms, like, oh, well, you're just being a bit sensitive there. Or straight away into gaslighting.
Yeah, where it's sort of like, so I think an example of that would be like if somebody questions the leader, right? So if someone says, you know, this is inappropriate, or I don't believe this, or I don't understand what you've said, or it doesn't seem to be in alignment with what I feel, or whatever. And then the leader will say, well, it's not really my problem.
Yeah.
It's actually you. You're the one who's challenged. It's never the leader's issue. A new paradigm leader will be like, well, okay, so you're running these patterns. What am I running?
Yeah.
Am I contributing? So there's like an inward reflection of like, okay, you know, we're all human. Yes, we are embodied consciousness. Yes, we resonate at different levels. And it's important, if you truly are a leader, to be learning yourself.
That's
to
right.
keep aspiring to growth yourself and to ask the question, like scan self. What's here for me to learn? What is it here that I need to grow from?
Yeah. Yeah, that comes right back to the accountability that we've already talked about in a previous podcast. Yeah. That's, I think for me, that would be one big thing when I'm looking for the new paradigm leadership is how much accountability does the leader take and how much are they continuing to learn?
Yes,
As
exactly.
opposed to, I have already learned this.
Yes.
Any reaction you have is yours. I'm not doing anything that could create that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I've heard people say, you know, leaders who are saying like, I have no ego. And as soon as I hear that, I'm like,
Run.
Right. Okay, well, you're human. You have an ego. You have it until you die. It's part of the distortion.
Otherwise, you'd be running in front of that car.
Yeah, It just doesn't make any sense. So
it's a safety mechanism.
Yeah. So to me, when someone says that, I always step back and I think, that's interesting that you have to even declare that.
Yeah.
Or people who have to declare that they're awake. Or they had to declare that there's something. If you're truly awake, you don't need to run around with a little flag and a megaphone saying, "Hi, I'm awake."
No barge.
Yeah, saying I'm awake. You know, you don't need. If you're awake, you don't need to prove anything. Honestly, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's all these little red flags, or people who say like, "I've done all the work. I'm totally clear. I have no distortion." That's not possible.
Wow.
You know, I'm like, wow. It means you have a huge blind spot. Is really what to me.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Yeah.
So it's constantly in the humanness to see where it is that we have these distortions, these triggers, these weaknesses, and to continue to release them and to learn and to grow and to celebrate the growth and the learning, not only in yourself, but in others.
Because I'd like to come back to that point because as the collectiveness raises its frequency resonance, we're going to be set with a whole new layer of distortions that, you know, are completely different. So how could you have learned everything and fixed everything?
Yeah.
Well, you've either not risen
Yeah.
or you have a blind spot.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted clarity on that, and
Yeah.
thank you for doing that for me, because I was thinking, wait a minute, how do I recognize that? So,
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's one that I think it's important to continue to ask, because so many people will so easily give away their power, even when they feel intuitively like something's off. Something is a little bit wrong with this dynamic. And they keep returning to that. And so my question, if that is happening for you, with whomever, it doesn't really matter, to ask yourself the question, why? Why do you feel like you have to keep returning to that relationship? Where's the distortion in you where it's like you're so uncertain of yourself that you want to get something from that person, or whatever it is that you feel, you know what I mean? That you're getting from that dynamic, which allows you to be diminished in
that
some
you
way.
feel you can't get for yourself.
Exactly.
You can only get it from there.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd ask that question.
Okay. So we do have a little bit of hope, and that
Yeah.
maybe this will come through, like the ripple effect, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
quicker than we really realize.
Yeah, and the more that we embody this is the amazing thing about frequency work. The more that we embody it, the more that the consciousness of humanity rises, the more that other people entrained to that consciousness rising, the more everybody moves up, right? This is how consciousness rises. And this is how you, being a leader in your family, in your community, in your workspace, however that looks, you know, you may not be like the CEO, you may be, you know, one of the participants in a group, like a, you know, a work group or whatever, but you can, the frequency resonance that you are, you'll start to lead.
Yeah, it impacts.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of like, did you ever hear that story about the young guy that was walking to school, and he met a guy that walked him to school. He was a pretty lonely guy, sad guy, and he dropped his books, and the other kid came along, picked them up, and started chatting to him. Oh, where are you from? Fast forward many years later, I'm really abbreviating this story, and he became a pretty high influencing guy, researcher or something, you know. And he got up. He was receiving an award. And he got me, said, I'd just like to thank my best friend, because what he doesn't realize until right now in this moment is that day I was going to commit suicide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And because this guy, his resonance was buoyant, and, you know, he kept chatting. So the guy had a little bit of hope. He could feel his resonance, that there was
hope,
some joy and love. And he just didn't. He chose not to. And because of that, his future was completely different. And he was able to stand there on the podium and say, did you realize the impact that you had on my life? And when you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, so if we do manage our resonance, frequency resonance, and we do just stand in the power and be in that leadership role, we have no idea
who we're influencing.
And how it impacts the collective.
Yeah, exactly. Because that person who stood on the podium and received the award for the work that he did, his work is important.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have happened without the resonance of his best friend.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's interesting, you know, I watched my husband, Chris, a lot, and his frequency resonance is high. And even when he talks to people, all he's doing is sharing his resonance with them. But it's similar, you know, and you can literally, I watched them rise in their frequency resonance. And what's amazing is you never know. Now their resonance is higher. So maybe they talk to a kid, or maybe they talk to somebody who's, you know what I mean, like in despair. But because this person's frequency resonance is higher, now the ripple effect of that moves out into the field. And so we really are this amazing ball of potential. And we think sometimes that we're not important and that we can't influence anything and that we're not really empowered. But that's really not true. The higher your frequency resonance, even if you can't see it, has an impact and a ripple effect into consciousness. Just like that man had never spoken, that man, his friend had saved his life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you just never know what it is that's a turning point for someone.
Yeah. Okay, so I look forward to that day when we can see more of that kind of leadership on this planet, and how high we can actually take this frequency resonance as a collective.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you who are interested in starting to raise your frequency resonance so you can step more fully into this leadership position, then I strongly encourage you to listen to the Group Frequency Calibration meditation associated with this episode. And if there is someone in your life who you feel could really benefit from this message, please share this video with them. We're about to start the Group Frequency Calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.